It's traditional when Jews enter a holy space that we chant the beautiful words, Matovu. How beautiful are your dwelling places, O Jacob. A very, very famous phrase that comes from the Torah. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, va'ani berov chastecha, avo veitecha, eshtachavel heichal kodshecha, beiratecha. Adonai ahavti mion beitecha, umekom mishkan kevodecha, vani eshtachave bechera, evrecha lifnei Adonai osi.
Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binodeh sheyarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenahaleni. נפשי ישובב ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגיא צל המוות לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, וישנת בשמן ראשי כעושי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך Yamin.
Mizmor Shir Hanukat Habayit LeDavid, a psalm of David, a song for the dedication of the temple. I extol you, Adonai, for you have raised me. Do not permit foes to rejoice over me. Sing to Adonai, you faithful, acclaim God's holiness. You transform my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy, that I might sing your praise unceasingly, that I might thank you, Adonai, my God, forever.
הפכת מסבדי למחולי, פיתחת שקי, ותעזרני שמחה, למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום. אדוני אלוהי, לעולם מודך.
We would not be here today if it wasn't for the extraordinary generosity, dedication, care, love, and concern of the Bender family. It's an honor today to thank all of you that have made this extraordinary accomplishment possible. Sherry and Ken, we think of course, all the grandchildren that could not be here today and the grandchildren that are here. and the children of Jack and Sophie, Sherry and Ken, Susie and Scott, Lisa and Joel, your precious children, the precious grandchildren, Oliver, Stephen and Liz, Eric and Holly, Jason and Florin, Brooke and her fiance Billy, Melissa and her fiance Michael, and Jeffrey and his partner Alex. I mentioned to some of the family members when I arrived this morning that I had the honor of doing a funeral in this room, in this beautiful chapel on Friday morning. And when I gathered with the family, it's hard to put into words just how appreciative this family was. It was the middle of the day on Friday. I think it felt like 140 degrees outside. But to be able to come in here, to take our time, to speak beautiful words, to allow family members to speak that would not have wanted to speak if we were outside, to allow the virtual watching of our service from people all over the world. The deceased was originally from Australia, and high quality transmission of our words halfway across the world allowed this family to feel so much comfort and so much more at ease, knowing that they can mourn their loved one in such a beautiful, safe, and comfortable space. I can't put into words just how much comfort you brought this family and how much comfort you will bring to families for literally generations to come. You have performed a righteous act of chesed. In our tradition, chesed is considered compassion, but not just compassion, but extraordinary compassion. It's going above and beyond because simply it's the right thing to do. You didn't have to build this sanctuary, but you did out of an act of chesed, thinking of those you don't even know because it was the right thing to do. You have truly kept the precious legacy of Jack and Sophie Bender alive. And as one of the rabbis of Congregation Beth Yeshurun, I can't thank you enough. I'd like to call upon our president, Congregational President Jared Bloom, to offer a brief word of thanks on behalf of the congregation.
Thank you, Brian. I walked in here today for the first time and immediately felt comforted. Yes, it was air conditioned and it felt nice on a 100-degree day, but the way this place is constructed, how it was constructed, what it's made of, and how it feels is comforting. It will serve to comfort our congregants for decades to come. I can't thank the Bender family enough for what they've done, as well as our Cemetery Association and Arthur Miller, Marlene Rosenthal, and Woody Fox. Thank you very much on behalf of the congregation.
And now for our most important part of our dedication this morning, to have an opportunity for two sons, proud sons, to speak. First Scott, and then Joel.
My sweet wife admonished me to keep this short, so I've kept it short. At the groundbreaking ceremony last August, I commented on how blessed we felt for the opportunity to honor the memory of two people whose lives exemplified the principles by which we all aspire to live. Thanks to Woody Fox, with the assistance of Arthur Miller, the efforts of Gensler and Butler Cohen, we are today dedicating what is undeniably the most beautiful chapel of its kind in the area. We'd be remiss in not thanking Susie, Lisa, and Sherry for their contributions in helping to ensure that this place reflects the ambiance we envisioned. That said, I must tell you that nothing brings me more joy than the words inscribed on the outside wall as you enter the chapel. First and foremost, the name Sophie and Jack Memorial Chapel conveys the empathy Mom and Dad exhibited throughout their lifetimes. To those suffering through the depths of grief, I can imagine our parents standing together as always, welcoming those in pain to enter and find a place of comfort, compassion, and community. Secondly, the addition of the priestly benediction. I'm quite sure our clergy wondered about our request to include those words so prominently at the entrance of a memorial chapel. Dad recited this prayer over us every Friday night before Shabbat dinner. And to this day, Susie will grab my hand whenever these words are recited, knowing the emotions I'm experiencing. And so, as I mentioned last August, this chapel is truly a gift for Mom and Dad. We're simply the fortunate vehicles through which to perpetuate their legacy. May their memories continue to be for a blessing.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here to dedicate this chapel in memory and in honor of our parents. I'm truly sorry that our children, Jeffrey and Alex, Melissa and Michael, and Oliver could not be with us. Mom and Dad lived their fullest lives, embracing family, faith, and the service of others. Early on, we learned that giving back was a tenet to live by. What I learned later in life was the number of people whose lives were touched by Mom and Dad because they chose to provide help without recognition or expectation. Mom and Dad received enormous satisfaction in knowing they could quietly make a difference in someone's life. Today we're in this chapel to fulfill a lasting mitzvah that I know will make our parents extremely proud. It is our prayer that this chapel will provide comfort and strength for those that need a place to honor the memory of their loved ones. Every time a service takes place in this chapel, Mom and Dad continue to quietly touch another life. Their memory will be a blessing for all those who pass through the doors, and their legacy will be a living memory to their capacity for unconditional love and support when it is most needed.
The Beth Yeshurun Cemetery Association is an organization which has the purpose of operation and perpetual maintenance of the Beth Yeshurun cemeteries. The organization has a board of 10 volunteer members and 2 staff, and it's been a privilege to serve on that, for me to serve on that board for the past 10 or so years. When the opportunity came up in 2018, as you know, Sophie passed away, I think, in May of 2018. It wasn't long after that that Scott spoke with Rabbi Rosen about the possibility of having a chapel like this at the cemetery. We had a board meeting in September of 2018, and the subject came up that a donation was available by the Bender family for us to have this chapel, and I was very pleased to step up and volunteer to be a project leader to bring this about. We quickly put together a group with the Gensler architectural firm and Butler Cohen contractors to meet with the vendors and establish a plan, which still in 2018 we launched at the end of the year. It's been a great pleasure to work with all the people involved and a lot of people that I have to thank who helped me along the way. Marlene Rosenthal, our president, our chair of the Cemetery Association, has been there throughout, supporting and giving guidance, and 2 subcommittee chairmen who worked with me, Lonnie Schooler and Barbara Golub, helped us as well with frequent meetings. It's been great to work with the architectural team from Gensler. I'm very happy that we have Chris Stewart here with us representing the whole architectural team, and also to work with the team from Butler Cohen, Eric Cohen, president,
is here with us today. It was just actually 1 year and 2 weeks ago that we were on this spot and there was no building. We were in a tent and we were having a groundbreaking ceremony. And now, through the hard work of all the people involved, and even through the COVID and the slowdowns and so forth, we're able to be together in this chapel on a very hot day where it can be extra appreciated. I think it's going to be 100 today, and we're comfortably sitting in here. I also want to thank very much Sherry, Susie, and Lisa, who met with us many times and were helped us with picking out things for the building, which really put their choices and their character and reflect their vision for this building and made it all come together. So we've taken the vision, and it's now the reality. I know many times, as most of you probably have heard, that Rabbi Siegel would say, achievement is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. And in this case, there's one thing I'd like to add, which is that you have to have the activation. And it was the Bender family coming forward and really activating the process that made it possible for us to be here this day and enjoy this and have the comfort for all of the people in the community for decades to come. I know now Marlene is stepping down as chair of the Cemetery Association, and I'll be assuming that position. And speaking as she would, but on behalf of the Cemetery Association, we understand the responsibility and will be stewards of this great gift to the community so that for many generations to come, it will serve everybody well. Thank you all.
Good morning, everybody. Even though I retired 2 years ago, I'm grateful to Rabbi Strauss, to Woody Fox, the leadership of the synagogue and the Cemetery Association for the opportunity to say a few words this morning about my personal relationship with the Bender family, and even more importantly, the relationship that Jack and Sophie had with one another, they being the honorees ultimately, whose good works we are celebrating today by the dedication of this beautiful edifice. Though my initial connection to the Bender family actually goes back to when I was a kid, because Sherry and I were classmates in Beth Yeshurun Hebrew School. This goes back quite a number of years. I won't say how many. We're almost exactly the same age. It was actually many years later, through my father, that I became close with Jack and Sophie, got to reconnect with Sherry, and got to know their two boys, Jack and Sophie's two boys, Scott and Joel, and their beautiful families. Jack and Sophie were good friends with my dad going back a long, long time to their childhood. And Sophie loved reminding me that before she met Jack, and maybe the kids don't know this, but before she met Jack, she dated my dad. And for years, Sophie loved teasing me that if things had gone well with my father, she could have been my mother. And I would joke back and say to her, that means Scott could have been the rabbi of Congregation Beth Yeshurun. She always added, of course, that I was lucky to have the mom I had. And I would say that Sophie's three kids were lucky to have the mom they had as well. Jack and Sophie were very different in their personalities. Jack was very animated, outgoing, and playful. And Sophie was a lady, beautiful and poised. Their personalities and demeanors complemented each other perfectly. They had one of those soulmate kind of relationships where they fell in love the day they met, and they stayed in love until the day each passed away. During the many years they lived in Memorial, their neighbors loved seeing them walk hand in hand in matching outfits every afternoon. And those who saw them said it was so beautiful, inspirational, seeing this handsome couple always walking hand in hand, side by side. Jack literally worshiped the ground that Sophie walked on. He told me once he never looked at another woman Why would he said. I'm married to the most gorgeous woman in the world. They loved dancing together, and they traveled extensively all over the world. And of course, Sophie was a marvelous cook, and Jack loved her cooking. And every Friday night, the family was invited to the home, had a standing invitation to share a Friday night dinner with all of Sophie's culinary talents on display. And most unusually, even for couples who loved one another, Sophie and Jack liked to shop together. Jack would go with her to the stores, to the mall, and he would just sit and watch while she went from one department and one store to the other. They shared a passion for Beth Yeshurun, and every Shabbat I knew where to find them, right in their seats, up close, not far from where I was on the bima. And after services, every week, Jack would rush up to the bima like a man half his age, pulling Sophie along by his hand, and he would tell me every week how much he loved my folks. That's certainly a way to a rabbi's heart. And of course, Sophie and Jack adored their children and their children by marriage, and their grandchildren, each and every one of them, and loved having them close by here in Houston. We're here today because of something that happened unexpectedly on May 18, 2018, just a few months before I retired. We had been here in this cemetery to lay Sophie to rest. And that night, moments before we were to begin the Shiva Minyan, Scott came over to me with a concern. It had been so hot in the cemetery, he noted, and he had been distressed watching older family members and friends sitting in such heat and with no restrooms to be found. Something, he said, needed to be done. I told him we had tried, but it was a costly endeavor, and we had just never been able to do it. And then he said those words that have brought us to this day. Let me talk with my family and see what we can do. And what Scott and Susie, Joel and Lisa, Sherry and Ken did was this. So today, here we are. And I personally want to thank each of you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of a grateful congregation and community. Your parents would be so proud to know that in their memories, this beautiful chapel will be here to enhance and elevate what it will mean to come to the Beth Yeshurun Cemetery to pay honor and respect to family members and friends for decades to come. Thank you again.
Thank you, Rabbi Rosen, for your beautiful words. And now there's no more appropriate way to end our dedication is to recite those words that Jack and Sophie would recite over their children every Friday night, and will now be on the outside of this chapel for members of our greater congregational family to see for years to come. We end now with the recitation of the priestly blessings.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God always bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
May God always show you his favor and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God always show you kindness and give you the greatest blessing of all, that of shalom, that of peace. And let us all say,
Amen.
thank you, everyone.